Hi guys, welcome to the next podcast of YarninBlak. Today I've got a really great guest on today, but I might just throw straight over to them just to introduce themselves. So hi, how you going? It's good that we can catch up.
Yeah, it is. It's good to be busy on the weekend.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from and who you are.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a proud Nyikina man from the Kimberleys. When I say the Kimberleys, so basically Derby and Broome, Western Australia. And my father's Indonesian, so he's full Indo, and my mum's Aboriginal Scottish Chinese mix. And while we're here, I want to acknowledge country as well, to acknowledge the land which we're standing on here today on Wurundjeri land, in which we work, rest and play, and to obviously acknowledge our ancestral and for those emerging for our future generation.
Yeah, and we are actually, I'm on Wurundjeri land as well, so I want to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as well. How long have you been based in Melbourne?
I've worked it out to be 12 years.
Okay, yeah.
Great.
What made you come down here?
I guess, yeah, just more opportunities. So where I'm from, there's not many opportunities with the arts particularly, so it's all mining town, you know. So when I speak of the town that I was in, that's Port Hedland.
Yeah.
So yeah, just the arts has always been a love of mine since I was a kid, and I guess I just had to pursue it by leaving home and going to another state, unfortunately, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah. What got you into the arts?
I guess it's just the idea of being able to express yourself, you know, without any judgment, and knowing you can actually use it as a form of escapism as well, I think. Yeah, there's a degree, I think, of all artists who use it as their sort of, even their sense of therapy as well.
When you told your parents you wanted to be an artist or a creative, how do you describe the work that you do? How do you describe what you do?
Well, it's sort of, with anything that I did at school, was always circulating around sport and theatre. So it was sort of a natural sort of thing that happened with me. And I guess, you know, because I was brought up with my mum, my father and mum went together after I was 5. They divorced. So that sort of thinking, knowing that my mum was always there, you know, for me, and she just supported everything I did. So, but in regards to describing what I do, I guess it's become much more ceremonial. It's not just performative. And particularly when I'm painting up for dance, it's that sense of knowing that we're not doing this to get any accolade. It's actually to be able to just be in the moment and to remember our ancestors and I guess to show, you know, how beautiful our culture is.
What do you like best about performing?
To be honest, I've been lucky enough to be one of those performers who get to travel a lot. So I've been doing heaps of travel in my time. Really love that. I don't like flying particularly, but being there in the places is it's always eye-opening.
Yeah. So if you could teleport to places, would that be easier for you?
Oh shit, yeah. Could you imagine?
Yeah, and probably, you know, people often might say to you, you know, you must be glamorous doing all this traveling and going here and there, but you're like normal people as well, in terms of you still got to check in at an airport and wait for luggage and catch planes and.
Yeah, there's no glamour whatsoever when you're traveling. You know, you're literally a decrepit walking bloody ball of mess, I guess. And, you know, that idea of being consistently sweating profusely as well, you know, and the time that it takes to get from one place to the next. But in regards to, that once you land, you know, the degree of all that just disappears because you know you're there in the moment. But yeah, let's just make it clear that as an artist, you know, there's nothing normal about us. We're all quite out there people, and I think that's what I love about the arts as well, because it's so full of creativity and so many unique individuals.
Yeah. So what things you've got planned coming up?
Yeah, so I've been on tour recently with Mitch Tambo, which is great. Yeah, really loving working with him and knowing that there's a strong connection there between us both and his wife as well, because she's one of the singers with him. And yeah, just finding a really strong collaboration and bond between us all, and really feeling like family. So yeah, a lot of that happening. There's some future work which I can't talk about yet, but it's going to be, I'm sure, in the ropes in the next couple of months. You'll probably hear about it. And yeah, I've always been working with a couple of companies. One's called Wurundjeri, which is my niece's company. It's all First Nations run, developed, and owned business where we go into schools and we teach sport, games, art, and dance.
Yeah,
which is really incredible. And also something very similar with Nikki Visage Enterprises. I've been with them for the last probably 5 years now. She's non-Indigenous, but it's really incredible what she has created, a platform for all these different cultures coming together as one, and basically giving schools some perspective on culture.
What do you like best about the work that you do?
Besides the travel, I love the idea of, just being able to express yourself, being able to tell stories, and to be able to continue, I guess, what we've always done for 80,000 years plus. The idea of us mob always telling, our stories, showing our dance and our songs. I really love that connection that we have with culture as well, because I could never really fathom the idea of not having connection to culture. So I feel blessed every day doing this work.
Yeah.
And I think also the art therapy side of things as well, how it's just so healing.
Growing up in Derby, what was it like growing up in Derby Headland area? It's not an area. Yeah.
It's very isolated. It's such a small town. But I don't know, I just love it. I think there's so many people there who are just so genuine, and there's so much, I don't know, I think there's a lot of connectivity too with the community there. People always say hello, and that's what I love about small towns, because you can sort of go anywhere and people sort of know who you are, where you are, what you're doing. There's also a downfall of that, of course, if you're trying to be discreet, but I've always been really open with my community. And I find, I actually miss it a lot too, because, I miss all the going out camping, going fishing, and, just throwing the throw net, getting some charamba.
Yeah.
Just going out bush and just going out in the marsh and just cruising out, with the beach buggy or something like that. It's just always been like, there's no worries in the world when I'm home there.
What made you end up being in Melbourne?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it was, I don't even think I know. I think I always feel like there's a calling, like no matter where you go. We basically call, when we say, we speak of Lian. Lian is when you're not in your head or your heart, but you're actually following your gut. And there's that sense of, I was really just trying to follow my gut, my intuition. And knowing that the arts was really strong in Melbourne, of course, but then I think every journey that I took was sort of coming to this point of meeting to the eastern states. And I think, again, with the opportunities, of course, but mostly just, following my gut, following my intuition.
You've been traveling overseas as well with some of the work that you've been doing?
Yeah, I've done a bit of travel overseas. So I went to Paris. I went to Zurich. That was with the company Marigeku. So I did a few years with them as well. And a little bit of, I wouldn't say Indonesia, just Bali. I think we've all been there. But I got to see sort of a bit of Belgium and Brussels and Strasbourg and Amsterdam, and like mostly that sort of area. I'd love to see more, of course, but I had to unfortunately say no to a couple of opportunities on the way, due to always trying to get my feet into many different, pots, and double booking myself isn't the best thing. Like when it comes to these moments, thinking, "Damn, I could have gone there," But it is what it is, and I always find again, Leon will take me no matter where it is. If I need to go somewhere, then it's meant to be.
Where did you end up studying?
I went to. Oh, sorry, cut you off. I went to high school in Headland, Port Hedland Senior High School, and then in year 11. Yeah, it was funny because I left school not on the best terms because there was a lot of stuff going on in between certain curriculums that I guess wasn't working, and that's another story. But that led me to go to Perth.
Yeah.
So I went to Forest Hill Senior High School, and I did my year 12 there. And funny enough, that's when I actually got into performing arts.
Yeah.
So I dabbled in a bit of theatre at Headland Senior High School, and that sort of led me to study further with Perth Clontarf.
Yeah.
So I went to Clontarf, and I danced with them for a couple of years. 1 year, and then I went from there to NAISTA, and then NAISTA to ACPA, and then I went from ACPA to WAPA.
Wow!
So I came back to West Australia.
Yeah, and then back into Wurundjeri land.
Yeah.
So what other? I know we talked a little bit about things you got planned coming up. What are some of the achievements that you're quite proud of?
I won the Deadly Awards back in 2008, I think it was. Yeah.
What was that for?
That was for Dancer of the Year.
Oh yeah.
And then, I got a couple of NAIDOC awards. That was with community stuff, and also with actually after I left year 12, funny enough. But nothing sort of, I always look at those awards and I think to myself, like, they're just a piece of plastic or a bit of steel. It's the sort of the work that that you've done behind it all, and in regards to also knowing that there's nothing more than just being able to sit down with your elders, and how they just sit there and they can, I don't know, they just, when they can appreciate knowing that you're trying to do the best that you can to represent our mob. To me, that's the biggest award. I think, and probably my most important work I've done would be my one-man play, which I'm still doing a second development of now. It's called Leon, funny enough. And I've been offered to do some extra marketing with it, with Black Dance, which is incredible. It's just good to know that there's people out there that have faith in our work, and they believe that there's a message behind our work. And so that to me is probably one of the biggest achievements of my life so far, just knowing that we're on the right track.
Yeah. So you talk about being in second development. What's the process of getting it? Some people might just think you just write a play and all of a sudden it all occurs. What is the process? How long does it take from your initial ideas to being able to have it live?
Yeah, good question. I think it's I've always been writing just like a little bit of a couple of poems here and there, or a few little excerpts that sort of came to mind. But it's interesting because over the years, I'd say probably over the last 5 years, everything that I looked at started to compile into one work. And this has been happening a lot recently. I think not just for myself, but for others I have conversations with as well, where you sort of find yourself doing these extracurricular, but for some reason it's all taking place. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, and it's creating one big picture in the end, and it's all coming to fruition. So Leon, for example, was something that I did for the last sort of on and off for the last four years, and that I somehow compiled together to go, well, actually I've got something here that could be like a play. But it was interesting because the time that we created the first development, it was only 2 weeks. that I did it. And I'm a dancer, yeah, I'm a mover, but this time around I was consistently just writing. And I remember going into this room and just seeing tables full of writing. And my director said to me at one stage, she said, "Suri, you're a mover. Come on, we need to start moving." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." And then we probably did the whole movement of the show in 4 days. So it felt a little bit rushed. And I know just from doing the show, I knew there was room for improvement always. And so I guess this is why we're doing the second development, because I know there's so much more we can actually address and feel like, you know, there's so much more layers that I believe I could go into.
Do you enjoy writing or dancing more?
I don't know. It's interesting.
Completely different.
Hey?
Or are they completely separate and different?
Not completely. Like, they do align. But I obviously, yeah, if I had the chance to choose one or the other, it would be to move, to dance with my body. But, you know, my body is getting, I've had a few injuries along the way. But I find there is such a strong sort of connection with writing and moving, because it's like when you write, particularly when you're in the flow, you literally are dancing on the paper, yeah, with your pen. Yeah. Or your keyboard. But then there's that actual physicality that is it's like no other. But yeah, I feel like they really do go hand in hand though. It's not something that I believe is separate. Yeah, there's not one without the other in a sense. Yeah. If that makes sense.
And you've also appeared in a couple of TV shows as well.
Yeah. Just like little cameos here and there. I did Brand New Day. I did The Glitch. I did what else did I do? Can't even remember half the things. But yeah, I want to get into film and television more for sure. That's something I've always had interest since I was a kid. Acting was really my first love.
Yeah. Going back to, because you said it was in the end of high school that you got interested in the creative arts. Yeah. So how old were you when you started dancing?
I think I've always been dancing as a kid. Yeah. But I really found that while I was in year 10, year 11, I felt like there's something internally that's going on in my body, and I'm moving in certain ways that I've never been shown before. So, and I knew instinctively I had to go upon things with protocol and permission. So I approached one of my aunties, and she basically told me just to move, to give her something, to show her something. And I danced, I guess, the best that I could at the time. And she basically said to me, "That's beautiful, Bob. You know, what you're doing is beautiful and you must continue." She said, you know, just follow your Leon. She's always said that. And I use this exact quote from my play as well, from Auntie Lucy Marshall. She, very special woman, very incredible knowledge, and just incredible presence. She's now passed away, unfortunately, but always strong in spirit with us. And that's something that I think since then I always knew that this is my calling. You know, this is my cultural obligation in a sense.
Yeah. Did you get any hassles from any of the boys because you wanted to do dancing?
No, actually, I got the opposite. I had so many guys come up to me and go, "You're dancing." I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, when can I dance?" And it's like, "Well, just apply." They were always like willing to dance because I knew that there was girls. You know, there's a lot of girls performing and in these classes. So, if anything, the boys always wanted to dance, but there's a bit of a shame factor as well, which we can relate to. And generally, every class I was in, mostly I was the only boy in the dance class as well. So, never really had been ridiculed for dance. I think I'd always just been praised for it. Yeah. I've been one of the lucky few.
Hey, growing up, did you ever face any racism or discrimination, or do you find that still in some of the work that you're trying to do today?
Yeah, I was just reading a little poem I wrote the other day about this. It's interesting because I've never really had it on face value, in a sense. Like, I've never really been told, you know, or been discriminated against in front of my face. But when I say never, of course, you know, we've had the couple here and there, but I guess I've just never let it get to me. You know, and I've known others who have been really unfortunate, who've actually had, you know, gone through major discrimination and prejudice, and it's just that idea of knowing that, again, I think it's the way we look at things and how we sort of continue from there. And I've always had really thick skin as well. I've never been, you know, now and then I'd have, like, you know, my little moments, and like we do, we're all human. But I think I realized that, you know, the only way we're going to keep it real and keep going is to just know that you are worthy.
Do you have any role models yourself?
Oh yeah, I've got a few. I've got my mum, my brothers, and my sisters. So mostly family. I've never really looked at anyone particularly from a celebrity status. I've been inspired by them, of course. But music-wise, I used to really love, and still do, love listening to Tracy Chapman. She really calms me. And I really love her, you know, her lyrics are so powerful, and what she speaks of, you know, in representation is she's very integral to her work. But other than that, I guess, you know, some companies I look at, like Alvin Ailey, I believe are one of the best companies in the world. You know, I was inspired through many different people individually as dancers, and probably the one main inspiration that I did look at, and he even told me there was similarities between us as well when we danced, and that was Russell Page.
When you are dancing, I know you dance with your obviously with your body, but how do you tune yourself into blocking everything out to take on the narrative that you do in the dance?
Yeah, it's definitely spiritual, man. I sometimes no shit, no word of a lie. I'll have something prepared, and this is mostly when I'm doing solo work. And then when I'm on stage, things just completely change, and I'm literally floating above my body, and I'm seeing this body move underneath me. I really do go into a trance-like state when I dance, and particularly when it becomes a thematic work as well, particularly if I'm embodying a particular animal, for example, like a crow or bunjil, or even, you know, right down to any of our totems that we represent through dance. The idea of becoming, and that metaphorical mix of knowing that you've got to transcend through to become. No longer are you, but you are what you are representing. That to me really is quite pinnacle when I'm dancing, and also I believe because I've had a bit of acting background as well, so I've really got to tune into the body and the mind, and then also just letting all go as well, and just letting spirit take its place. Yes, it's not easy to explain. There's days where I know when I was in So You Think You Dance, for example, I was in my head a lot in that show. Also knowing that I lost my mother during that time as well, so I was grieving on national television. But the idea of now learning other people's choreography and stuff that I'd never done before, so that really sort of played a lot in my mind about how I need to go about the next processes. But there were times when I started to find the flow, then it sort of just became naturally sort of, it's hard to explain, but you know what it's like. Like, I guess when you do radio, there's that sense of knowing that you've done it so often, it's no longer you thinking, you're just doing. Yeah.
How do you define leadership, and what makes a good leader?
Obviously people who aren't afraid to speak up, first and foremost. We also, I believe, a good leader is someone who has a sense of control, and to not take it personal. It's really hard, because if you're speaking on behalf of others, you you've really got to take away your personal issues. You've got to speak so that others are heard. Yeah, you are the voice for those people. I also think a good leader is someone who is willing to negotiate. Yeah, you've got to learn to compromise. You've got to know when to say no and yes, and you've got to make it's like a director for a play. You've got to make those certain decisions, which is going to work and which isn't, and you've got to really have thick skin.
You're also about to start your own business, or creating and developing your own business in management for artists. Yeah, tell us a little bit about. Has it got a name yet? And tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. The white name, name of it is called Faces for Spaces. So it's basically saying that we need more. We need to support the minority more. First and foremost, First Nations representation, POC and LGBTI communities. There's a lot of spaces where we're still finding a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of there's not much inclusivity and diversity happening in these particular spaces, particularly in mainstream. I've had the experience of working with management before as well, and I've learned that it's a very much in dire need of more of our representation, and also because the way that a lot of our mob are treated, it's the time is now to make them realise that there's so many protocols and procedures that have just been completely just taken advantage of, and it needs to stop. If we're going to have any writings from non-Indigenous entities, we need to remember that they have to be guided and pursued with First Nations artists. And a lot of that's just, people thinking, I've got a great idea, I want to write this and make it happen. It's like, well, you don't just do that, So it's all about consultancy as well, making sure that people are, we say a lot of people are ignorant, but it's not even just ignorance or racism or being people racist, but it's more about not being educated. So we have to remember that it gets tiring. We are getting tired of telling people the same old shit over and over, but we've just got to keep maintaining this because it's the only way. So this I guess this management is mainly about getting, our faces and our voices heard and seen.
Yeah. How far away are you from starting this business, or has it started? Have you got, where's it up to?
I feel like I've been doing it subconsciously for such a long time, and I've also had many different agencies and companies calling me going, oh, how do I find this person? Who do I go to this person, etc. And I've, being in the industry for so many years, you obviously gain your networks and you start to create a really good circle of, of networks in general. So I was always doing that, and I realized, why aren't I making a business for this, in a sense, because I was always doing this pro bono, and I think, we've got to make a living. We are all artists. We don't get much income anyway as it is, so we've got to start creating our own commission. So I thought this is the time. I've already got a couple of clients so I'm representing at the moment. So it's been great, and just finding them work, and I wanted to keep this open to not only people who are already professionals in their fields, but also the emerging and people who just want to give it a go, because so much talent out there with our mob, and and we seem to be finding the same faces on television a lot, and kudos to them. They're doing incredible work, don't get me wrong, but we need more representation. So I think that's why I wanted to do this as well, to find. I have a natural knack of finding talent. Because I've been in the industry long enough, and I know how it works internally and externally. I've been in those situations where I've been maltreated as well. So I don't want anyone to be treated the way that a lot of us were, and I think we need to do it the correct way.
If you are looking for new talent, what is it that you're looking for?
Just people who are hungry, people who want to learn, people who may have really already had representation but have just not been represented correctly. Maybe I'm looking for people who are just yeah, just naturally talented, but needs some sort of guidance. I'm really good at that. I find that I'm really good at catering and helping people to find their sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Mm.
Look, just recently I saw on Facebook someone put up a post going, "Oh, I'm trying to find an Aboriginal-looking actor." Do you still get those kind of requests?
Oh my God, all the time. Terrible. You know, it's so funny because I remember this one particular agency going, "Oh, we need an authentic Aboriginal," you know, and it's like, okay, well, what do you mean by that? And their first go-to was, "Oh, you know, something like 10 canoes." It's like, wow, you know, and it just goes to show ignorance, you know, and how uneducated people are. So,
Yeah.
you know, and this famous saying that I remember Uncle Kevin, you know, Kevin, he would say to me, you know, "It's like coffee, you know, you add milk, is it still coffee?" And it's like, it's true. It's, you know, you've got black blood in you. You'll always be black no matter what color your skin is. Yeah. And that's Kevin Crapinuri I'm speaking of, by the way. And but there's that concept of knowing that, yeah, we are so many different shades. We're so many different colors and creeds, and you know, and people should know by now why, you know, due to the assimilation process. So you know, it never stops our heart from being black. So I think there's that degree of yeah, that's partly the reason why I want to start this creative I guess this business as well, to really start to educate people about how diverse we are. Yeah, it's so typical of a lot of people who think the authentic Aboriginal is, you know, just dark skin only, and you know, and still in the bush wearing nagas. You know what I mean? So it's yeah, it's funny, but it's just sad to know that this still exists. Yeah, I think that's why we need more sort of black representations for these particular managements as well, because there's really nothing. There's a lot of non-Indigenous peoples out there running and owning Indigenous works.
Yeah. I think it's making sure that Aboriginal people are given platforms where our voices can be heard, and having those platforms actually be given by Aboriginal people as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's major. I think it just feels like for us more authentic to be able to come from our own people.
Yeah.
You know, again, it depends on, you know, what is their agenda though, you know, behind the works. What do they really want from you? So sometimes you just never know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of us had to go into those spaces to learn the hard way, and it's just so beautiful now that we've got something like ICMEA behind us, which is the intercultural equity, you know, casting for Indigenous artists. And it's the idea of knowing that we can actually say, you know, now we actually have cultural protocol being adhered to in these spaces after 30 to 40 years in the industry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think slowly we're making a difference. There's things that are happening, and it's slow. It is really slow. It should be much quicker than what it is, but it's just being, you know, I don't even like the word resilient. I don't like the word resilient anymore. I think we've just got to know that we've just got to keep doing what we do, and not being ashamed of who you are, and just stepping out there and going, you know, this is what it's about. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're also doing stuff with World Pride, aren't you? Something with Huxley Brothers, Bloodline.
Yeah, that was incredible. My God. So I feel so blessed to work with them. They're, you know, because they're international artists and they've been there, done that, and they're just so humble. And this was basically like the opening of the First Nations gathering for the World Pride.
Yeah.
And it was all the LGBTI community coming together and you know, and mob, and just trying to really just, you know, be really open and to be proud of who we are and our culture and the community. And it was, to me personally, one of my most special moments when it came to collaborations. You know, we had people from all walks of life, coming together as one and just being like a huge big family and showcasing our works on the stage. It was just so beautiful. I wish you were there. You would have loved it.
Sounded absolutely amazing. It really did. What advice would you give young Aboriginal kids in, like, I don't know, high school that want to get into the arts? What tips or strategies would you offer them?
Yeah, just be persistent. Don't ever give up. Always believe in yourself, because that's major, because you're going to have a lot of people who just try to put you down or tell you otherwise. And just know that it's a growing thing. It takes time. You can't rush into something. You can't be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. You can work your craft and you can get really good at it. Then you'll find that with practice comes permanent. So your body will always have its natural response, and also its muscle memory. And I say, do your research. Really important. I didn't do my research till later, and I found that as the years went on, I could have taken on more if I had just thought about doing my research more. Really integral. Yeah, know your work, know what you're doing, know why you're doing this, and really just to know in time you'll know your purpose.
The last question I've got is, what would you like people to walk away with from our yarn this afternoon?
I think just to take every day as it comes, and just don't push shit uphill. Things are going to happen. There's going to be a lot of times of trials and tribulations. Yeah. Particularly now, like we can create our own little worlds and we can think everything's all fine and dandy, but there's the bigger world to understand that there's so much chaos going on around us. But just to be calm and to know that things are meant to be the way they are, and to not try to do something that you think, you may later regret as well. Just take it easy and really think clearly about your next decisions.
Very wise words. Very wise words. Look, I'm just watching the time, and I know that we kind of need to go, but I actually want to say thank you very much for joining me today. And guys, thank you for listening, and catch me at the next podcast. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Thank you so much. Take care.